Welcome, Luminous Ones, to another episode of Ask the Oracle podcast. I'm your host, Suzy Cherub, psychic medium, oracle creator, and guide for women walking the path of intuitive leadership. Today's episode is really extra special for me because I'm joined by not only an extraordinary spiritual business mentor and modern priestess, but also my beautiful daughter, Bec Cuzzillo. Bec is a woman who leads with fire, devotion, and grounded power. She embodies the work she teaches, and every conversation we share feels like an activation, a spark that lights the way forward. I know you're going to feel that same ignition today. We're diving into a theme that has been pulsing through both our worlds, self-leadership, and why 2026 is the year it becomes essential for every woman rising. So take a breath, soften your shoulders, and settle in. This is going to be a rich, expansive, soul-stirring conversation. Hi, Bec. How are you, my love?
Hello, I am good, thank you. I am very excited to be here, and what an introduction.
Oh, good. I'm glad you like it. Well, it's easy to write because I know you pretty well. So
Yeah, you do. Probably one of the people in the world who knows me best.
that's it. So excited for today. It's such a pivotal moment and perfect divine timing, of course, to be talking about this. So, yay, let's dive deep. So
Let's
let's
do
let's get
it.
started. Yes. Okay. So, Beck, something that you and I have been talking about a lot lately is self leadership, and how 2026 is really the year of stepping into our own power. When you talk about self leadership, what do you actually mean by that?
It's a really good question. When I think about self-leadership, I really think about it's obviously about being led from within. And in order to do that, I think the main thing is knowing who you are, being really clear on that, and knowing your values, knowing what's important to you, knowing kind of your North Star, like where you're going and why you're going there. I think it's really about your why and then leading yourself from that place. And I think the reason why I think we are in such a pivotal moment when it comes to self leadership is because there are so many distractions out there right now. We are
There's
bombarded with
so much noise,
inputs
isn't there? Yeah.
so much. Like never before have humans had this much information so often going into their brains. And in order for us to navigate this world that we live in, where there is so much noise, I think we are going to increasingly have to be self-led, or we increasingly have to be more conscious of being self-led, because I think it is so easy, if we are not being conscious of that, to start giving our power away to so much. And I say that because it is literally everywhere. Like if you think about how much screen time we all have, how much information is we're taking in from all of the different platforms that we're on. We're then watching television, we're watching movies, we might be reading books, and all of that can be really great. But when it's so much, and then we add in the layer of AI and, larger language models like ChatGPT, where you can literally ask it to do your thinking for you. I think we
Yes.
get into this really, I think we're at a really, and I say dangerous, but we're in a really dangerous space of being able to just give our power away so easily without even realizing that we're doing it. And
Yes.
then what is even our own thought anymore? Like what,
Yes.
who are we? What do we think? What are our original thoughts? What is that intuition that we, need to be tapping into? How can we stay connected to that when there's so much coming in all the time? And I think so for me, self leadership is really about recognizing that and then going, okay, well, what am I doing consciously to protect myself or to lead myself and to have boundaries in and around all of that so that I still know at the end of the day that I'm living my truth. That
Yes.
is what I would say.
Yeah. So good.
It's a big
I think,
topic.
yeah, it's so easily to get distracted with the noise. And I love how you explained that. I think it's more and more important to have psychic discernment, healthy energetic boundaries, and to really stay focused. I love, staying focused on your why, on your core values and what's important to you. And of course, we all like to do the scrolling or whatever. Like, we have to be realistic about it. I love that you mentioned the discernment in around AI. I mean, AI is a fabulous tool, but it's simply a tool. It doesn't replace our creative thinking, yeah, I think it's so important that we have a more and more conscious, deliberate discernment, healthy boundaries. Love it, love it, love it. So cool. Yay, we're on the same page there.
I know we are. I know we are. I mean, you and I have these conversations quite regularly about all of these different things. And you're right. It's not like we're not going to be an engaged human on these platforms or when we're not ever going to watch television. It's not about that. It's more about being discerning. I think that word discernment is such a powerful word and one that goes hand in hand with self-leadership. Like if you're being self-led, you are being discerning about the time that you're spending doing certain things and what it is that you are doing and the information that you're taking in. And you're just conscious that there's lots of agendas out there. And when I say that,
Yes,
what I mean is, Instagram is literally designed to keep us on that platform. Like all of these
absolutely.
platforms are designed to keep us there. They don't want us leaving. They
Yes.
want us to stay addicted. And, you know, I've I've very much been confronted with my own phone addiction over the last few weeks. Because I made a conscious decision at the start of this year that I really wanted to change some things. And
Yes.
I didn't, I knew that I spent a lot of time on my phone. And I run an online business. I run a lot of my business from my phone, particularly as a mum. I use my phone a lot to do things so that I don't have to be sitting in front of a laptop. And that's great. And that gives me so much freedom. But to give you an example, I used to, and I don't do this anymore, but I used to, right before bed, I would open up my phone and I would look at my email, I would look at Instagram, I would look
Yeah.
at whatever other apps I open up, and I would just tap them. I had this like addiction of I just want to check them one last time. For what? What was I doing that for? Why? That has no I wasn't going to do anything. If I had an email, I wasn't going to respond to it. If I had a DM from someone, I wasn't going to respond to it. I wasn't going to comment
Yeah,
on
good point.
anything. I
You weren't
just
going to do
wanted,
anything productive. Yeah.
no,
You're
I just
just
wanted to
looking. Yeah.
see. I just needed to know. Like my
Yes.
brain was like, I just need to know what's there. And I didn't realize the extent of that until I got the brick, which I now have sitting on my fridge, which is like this little square thing, magnet that sits on your fridge where you can literally go and lock your phone. And in order to unlock certain apps, you have to go and tap your phone on the fridge. I realized that I was doing that. And I had this urge. Like, I was like, oh, maybe I'll just go unbrick it so I can check all of those apps. Like, no, what
It's
are you
seriously an
doing?
addiction. You're quite right. And I'm the same as you. I need it for my work and I stay in contact with my community that way. And I love community. But at the same time, when you're going down that rabbit hole of just crazy spiral, what am I looking at? What's going on? Where am I now? And plus it's not great for your sleep patterns either. If you're doing that before you go to bed, it's not great for your sleep. Like,
Obviously, what was I going to
yeah,
do if I got an email from somebody that I mean, this didn't happen, but if I got an email that was quite serious or something that, if I was seeing like, oh, you owe some money here or here's an invoice for this, like I don't need that going into my brain as I go to bed. Like I can deal with all of that. None of that is urgent. And I think that's the thing for me. It's like we need to be really conscious of all of that. And if we're
yes,
not, and I will admit, have stuck my head in the sand around some of that over the last, little while.
Well, I
But
think it crept up on us too, to be fair. Like it
yeah, and
crept up on us, yeah.
I think when you start to examine your habits, you can go, oh, I can see what's going on here. And until you're aware to it, obviously, or willing to be aware to it, you
Yeah.
can't make that change. But once you are, then it's like, okay, well, what are we doing to put some things in place here? And, the fact that these bricks exist as a thing you can purchase means
Yes.
that I know I'm certainly not alone in this being an issue. And I talk to clients all the time about this. I talk to lots of people all the time about, all of these different things. But, your phone is such a good example because I think it's one that so many of us uh, find challenging.
Yes, absolutely. Like I think, what's the opposite of self-led is easily led.
Mm,
Are you being easily led? Right? You know, I love it when you use the word conscious because I think self-awareness is simply self-awareness unless you're acting on it, right?
yeah.
So self-awareness is fantastic, but what are you going to do with that knowledge? So yay, yeah, cool. Um, I know you've got some really big goals moving into this year, and with the energy of the fire horse, and of course you're a fire sign, everything feels bold, fast, and forward moving. And I'm excited about that myself. How do you prepare yourself energetically when you're going after new goals? What does that actually look like for you, Bec?
So this all really ties into what I've been doing with my phone use and a few other bits and pieces. When I came into this year, I really knew that I wanted to go after it this year. I wanted to stretch myself a little bit. And I kind of realized towards the end of last year, and I've just had a baby. So, well, I say just, he's 6 months old this week, which is insane. But, 6 months ago I had a baby, and every time I go through that portal, or every time I've been through that portal, there's always huge growth that happens, as you become a mum. And I definitely was in that place late last year where I realized that I'd just been I'd just been playing small. And I had goals and I was doing well and I was really happy, and I think it's really interesting, right? Like when you've already kind of got the vision board life, and I do have that, I've got a successful business, I've got a house that I love, I live by the ocean, I've got a beautiful family, you know, I'm very privileged. And so when you're in that place, it's like, okay, well, what does it look like to bring bring something else into that vision? What does the next vision look like? Sometimes that doesn't really land until you're ready for it. And so late last year that landed for me and I was like, I'm ready to stretch and I'm ready to go after something bigger. And for me, that's growth in the business. And I'm really excited for what this year is going to hold. And what I decided to do was actually set myself a bigger goal than I've probably ever set. And what that really allowed me to do was examine, well, what would need to change in order for me to get there? And sometimes when we set realistic goals, we actually don't really need to change that much to achieve those realistic goals. And so maybe sometimes we don't hit those realistic goals or we do, but there's not a lot of change that has to happen in order to make that the case. But because I'm going for something bigger, I've really had to rethink a lot of things. And so for me, it was like, okay, well, what has to change? I first started with the practical because for me, that's feels most comfortable. Okay, what does this actually look like on paper? If I was to grow the business to XYZ, how do I get there? What does that look like? Is my business going to support that right now? Probably not. Do I have to make some changes? What do those changes look like? So there's like this practical side of it. And then coming into this year, I was like, okay, who do I have to be to hold that? And I think we hear about this like energetic work and this identity work a lot, and people kind of throw around this idea of like, you have to step into the highest version of yourself, or you have to step into the version of yourself who already has achieved that goal in order to make that happen. And it kind of feels a little bit outside of ourselves. It doesn't feel very real when we say
Well, it's a
things like that.
concept, isn't it? It's a
Mm.
concept, which
Who do you need
means,
to be? Who do you
yeah,
need to be? How can you be her? And it's like, okay, well, but what does that actually look like? Like
yeah,
what is that like what do I actually need to do on a day-to-day basis? Or is it
yes,
about what I'm thinking? And it's all of these things. But for me, that's where I really looked at my habits. And that's what kind of led me down this path to going, okay, my phone use is something that I need to address because that version of me who has that business is like much cleaner in and around those boundaries around her phone use, you know? And then there was some other things that came up. So for me, yeah, it's things like drinking enough water, eating well, movement. Of course, all of those things are important, but it's these micro things that I think really make the difference. And perhaps the things that feel most uncomfortable. Like for me to sit here and say to you, I've got a phone addiction, that's not a particularly comfortable thing to say on a podcast that is going to go out to however many
oh,
people,
look, every second person, if not every person.
Yeah, but these things about ourselves that we're like, oh, I don't really want to like look at that too much because that feels a little bit uncomfortable. Like I knew that because I felt that way, I knew I had to do something about it.
Yeah.
Similarly, I've quit coffee or I've quit caffeine because
Yeah,
I am
we've both
drinking.
quit coffee, haven't we?
We have. I'm drinking
Mm.
decaf. And again, it's these inputs. It's about these inputs. Like
Yeah.
I was inputting this caffeine and it was making me feel crap, quite frankly. And I was kind of putting up with it because I really do enjoy coffee. I enjoy the ritual around it. I like, it feels like something I've been doing for a long time. I wouldn't say I have a coffee addiction, and I only say that, and some people who know me might laugh at that, but I don't because I don't
You
drink
don't
it every
actually.
day. Yeah.
You don't have to get up in the morning and have 3 cups of coffee. That's not who you are. Yeah.
No, but I do enjoy it when I go out to have a nice oat cappuccino.
Yes. Yeah.
Now I'm having an oat decaf cappuccino, and yes, it does cost me more money, but I still get to have that ritual.
Because you're also quite frugal too. That's for another episode.
Well, I'm not out here. I'm not out here. I want to enjoy my life,
Yes.
um, but I want to enjoy it all the time. I don't want to save that up to, only be able to go out once a month,
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You've got to
Uh,
live and enjoy life.
Yeah, and that's a very
Yeah.
like, isn't that the most privileged thing ever to be able to say, by the way?
I
But
know. Yeah.
I'm gonna have that decaf coffee when I go out, but it also means that I'm not driving past the coffee shop after daycare drop off to pick up a takeaway coffee because I feel like I want a coffee today. Like I just don't
Yeah.
do that anymore. I'll just make myself a cup of tea at home. So there's many benefits to this. But I basically, what I do or what I have done when I've looked at, okay, these are the goals I've got, it's like, yes, okay, let's look at the practical things I need to do in order to get there. But then what are those habits? What are those behaviors? What are those things that I need to really address in order to really see that growth? And I think
Yeah.
if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. And I'd been comfortable
So
for a
true.
little while.
Growing pains, ascension symptoms, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes you have to, yeah, do that uncomfortable thing to get more comfortable, actually.
Yeah, like
It's an interesting
actually. And
phenomenon.
you know what's so interesting? I started bricking my phone, so
Yes.
locking myself out of
Well
these
done, by the
apps.
way. That's fantastic to have that awareness. Yeah.
Thank you. I've started doing that. So what that actually looks like practically is it automatically comes on at 10 p.m. at night. And then I have to turn it off in the morning and I turn it off. I make sure that I've had breakfast, I've done all of the things I need to do, and I'm unbricking it when I'm going to start my work day. So I go to the fridge and I unbrick it then. And what I've found is that I now meditate in the morning.
Yes.
And I would have told you last year that I just didn't have time for that.
Interesting.
Guess what I was doing instead?
Scrolling.
And maybe sometimes I was working, maybe
Yeah.
sometimes I was scrolling and working, but I don't need to
Yeah.
be working at 7 in the morning.
So interesting because 2026, one of the kind of energetic imprints is presence, like being more present.
Mm,
And it's interesting that you're talking about, you know, bricking your phone and drinking less coffee. And I'm assuming that would make you feel more present.
100%. And
Yeah.
if we think about the idea of self-leadership,
Yeah.
if I go and write all of the things that make me feel happy, and if anybody listening to this, if you go and write down a list of anything that makes you happy, thinking through all of those things, walking in nature, meditating, going out and enjoying a beautiful coffee, spending time with friends, spending time with family, whatever it is, you might have creative hobbies. I bet you scrolling on your phone is not one of them.
No.
No, it's not what we want to be spending our time doing, but it is what a lot of us are doing.
It's really interesting how sometimes we go what I call unconscious,
Mm.
where we go unconscious and we do all those things we know aren't good for us. And then all of a sudden we wake up and go, oh my goodness, I'm doing that thing again. And then you might have 3 or 4 days where you don't do it. But then by day 5, there's going unconscious again,
Mm.
where you slip into that, that unconscious, repetitive, you know, spiral. So,
So I
I think
suppose
it's
it's how do you
it's
stay in that place of presence? How do you stay
that's
in that
it.
place of
How do you stay?
self-leadership?
Good
Yeah.
point.
I don't know if I've got a clear answer for you other than continuing to practice it. I think this is something that I did with my clients actually recently. So I ran an identity and standards workshop for them. And one of the things that I
Brilliant. Yeah,
said was you just need to practice being this person. We talk about like, how do you be that person who is
exactly.
bringing that goal to life? Well, you practice being her. You wake up in the morning and you put your reps in. You do the things that you need to do. And if you fall off that horse, that's okay. But that doesn't mean that that's it and forever and you're done. Like, oh, don't get back on. Like, no, you go, okay, I see what happened there. And I think the key is really it's coming to that balance too, because I think there is an element of needing to call yourself out on your own BS, right? Like you need to be able to
Yes,
go like I'm done with this. I'm sick of my own crap. I'm making a different decision. And then not sitting in the guilt or shame if you have a moment where you fall
absolutely.
off.
I think you
You've got to
need to be
hold both of those.
exactly. You need to have self-compassion, not beat yourself up and go, oh my goodness, I'm doing that thing again. I think it's more about being aware, okay, that's okay. I'm just going to get back on track. Life, that's okay. I think that's important too. Yeah,
Yeah, agreed.
exactly. Yeah. So for the women that are listening who feel that pull to grow or evolve this year, where do you suggest they start? I mean, you've given them some really great tips already. What's the first step into that next version of themselves? And it's not like you're becoming something you're not. It's like becoming just, we're always evolving, we're always growing and learning, that beautiful next version of self. Yeah.
And I think that evolution is natural. If you think about who you were 10 years ago,
Yeah.
it's not like there was anything wrong with that. And you can honor that version of yourself. And there were so many things that were right about that moment in time. Evolution is natural. What I would say to somebody who's like, okay, I'm ready for some change here. I want to
Yes.
I want to go bigger. I want to stretch myself. I want to be a bit bold this year. That's my word of the year. And if you are ready for that, my first suggestion would be to really connect in with what it is that you truly desire for yourself and allow yourself to go there. I think sometimes we can be too realistic, or we
Yes.
can say, oh, that's not for me, or that's not possible for me for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And we don't allow ourselves
To
to
dream, to
dream.
visual, to have that vision. Yeah.
Mm. And not put any stories in and around it. We make things mean so much when actually it's okay to just want that. Like it's literally
You
just
can just want
okay.
it.
You can just want it. You know, for example, something that I teach my clients who are, in business, we, when you're growing your social media, for example, you're growing your community, the idea of growing to 10K followers or having, 5,000 people on your email list, all of those things are helpful in, a strategic sense, but
Yes.
it doesn't always equal more money, more sales, more anything,
Quite often it
having those
doesn't
followers.
because, yeah, I mean, it may not
It may
because
not.
quality leads are far more important than masses of people that you may not even ever talk to or know or.
Yeah. So those vanity metrics don't necessarily mean that, they're going to be strategic or it's going to result in more sales and so like as a business goal, it's not one that I would ever say to clients, you need to get to this, number of people in your community to in order to have a successful business, because that's not true. But I would really like to have more followers on Instagram, and that is something that I would really like to have, and I just want it. And yes, there is an element of if they are,
I don't want
making
it
sure,
too.
yeah,
There you
making
go.
sure they're the aligned people, right? Like making sure that they are aligned
Yes,
and that
let's
is
let's
strategic.
manifest that.
But ultimately, like I would really like to grow my Instagram following. That is something I would like to do. And so like it's okay to want these things, even if you can explain away why it's not really necessary to want that thing, Like it's okay
Yes.
to just want it. So that's what I would suggest. And it doesn't obviously have to be in and around, you know, a business or anything like that. It's just more letting yourself dream. I remember I read a book and I can't remember which one of the books it was, but it's one of Denise Duffield Thomas's books. And she talks about, she's a money mindset coach, an Australian money mindset coach. She talks about how she never allowed herself to want business class flights, or first class flights. She just was like, that's just not something that's ever going to be possible for me. And so she just didn't allow herself to want it. And
Interesting.
and it's so interesting because it's like, okay, there can be reasons why business class flights or first class flights don't align with your values. There can be reasons why you might not put that on your vision board, but
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with wanting it.
that's a desire.
Mm. So, what are the desires that you've been denying yourself, and how can you claim them? I think if we think about being bold, that's
Yes.
bold to go,
Yeah.
that's what I want. I do really want that. And it doesn't obviously have to be business class flights. It doesn't have to be anything expensive either. It can be, I want to do this on the weekend. Like my goal is to have more time and freedom to, have a creative pursuit. And if you've got stories around, oh, I'm not creative, or I couldn't possibly have that time on the weekend because I've got XYZ, that's a desire that you are denying yourself because of whatever story you've got in and around it. Like, let's just let yourself want that. And then we can reverse engineer it and work out a way to make it happen. But if you don't let yourself want it, you are never going to have it.
Yes. It's so powerful. And if you can get into the feeling of it too, like, you know, admit what you want, and then what would that feel like to
And the
have
fact
it,
of the matter is, do you really want it that much? If you're not willing to make some uncomfortable changes, and I'm not saying that it's not going to require some uncomfortable changes, but if
Yeah,
you're not willing to get uncomfortable and make some changes, then do you really want it that much?
probably not.
Or if you do, then be okay with it being a little bit uncomfortable
Yeah, exactly.
because it's probably going to be a bit uncomfortable if you're wanting to go after something that is bigger, bolder, a bit of a stretch from where you are now to where you want to go. There's going to be some discomfort in that, and you're going to have
Yeah.
to be okay with it.
I think, like making the decision too, like wanting it and then making the decision. And then whatever action steps, it can be like little baby steps if you like. But, you know, yeah, from an early age, I realized that if you wanted something, there was a very good chance you were going to get it. Somehow it would kind of work and happen. And I know there's a lot more to it than that, but it really does start with that.
I think it's this energy of inevitability too.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might weigh up the choice. And there might be two things you want, and you prioritize one over the other for the moment, and then the other one comes later. And that's okay. I think it's about, again, it's this idea of being a leader, self-leading, like actually leading yourself down that path and making that conscious decision. I think the word decision is so good because when you've decided, then it
Yes,
no longer lingers.
that's right.
For example, I'm going to give you an example. Something that's been on my vision board for a really long time is having a home office studio in my backyard. You know this, Mum.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we've been in this house now for 3 years, and we have talked about this since day dot. I've always known exactly where I want it to go. I mean, it's kind of changed and evolved a little bit, but we've got the space in our backyard to do it. And it's just not been the time, and it's not been we've not necessarily had the money to invest in that at this point in time. We've prioritized other things. And this is where you get really conscious about the decisions that you're making. So rather than it always being something that is constantly just on your future vision board, at some point in time, you really want this to make this thing happen, but you don't know when it's going to happen and da 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 da. What we want to do is make a decision of like, are we doing that this year? Is this going to be something we're doing? Or are we not going to do it? The other thing that's been on my vision board is going on a family holiday. I really want to, and we've had small trips and things, but I really want to go overseas on a tropical family holiday to a resort where there's a kids club and I can sip a cocktail by the pool and my kids can be in a kids club. I really want that for me.
Yeah.
And we booked back in 2020, right before COVID kicked off, we booked a holiday in Bali, which never happened. So we've like almost gotten there and it hasn't happened. Anyway, Matt and I, my husband and I, we've been talking a bit about this and what we're going to do this year. And at this point in time, really, it's are we going on a family holiday or are we building my home studio? Like that's the two options we're weighing up against each other because both are a significant investment for our family. And at the moment, we have decided that we are going to press pause on the family holiday and we are going to go ahead and actually build the home studio this year. Yay! But we had to make that decision. And it doesn't mean that we're never going to go on a tropical family holiday. It just means that it might not happen in 2026. And it's being conscious about that decision. And I'm okay with that, right? Like it's not like, I feel like I've said the word privilege so much, but it's obviously the most privileged thing ever to be like, are we going on an overseas holiday or are we building something in our backyard? Like, these are decisions we're
Yeah, but
making though.
that's because you're grateful and and you're sensitive to others. So,
Mm.
yeah.
But this is the thing. It can be that on that scale or it can be that on a different scale. But sometimes there
Yeah,
might be trade-offs that you make around these things.
exactly.
But
Are
actually,
you prepared to do what it takes?
yeah, and
I reckon
actually
you can have
doing
almost
it.
anything if you're prepared to do what it takes.
And to be honest, we could probably do both if we wanted. Like
Yeah.
we could. Do we want to? It's always looking at, okay, well, what does that mean for us financially then? Or what is the trade-off here from making those decisions? And what is more important to us? And this is why I think knowing your values and what is important to you and what your goals are, because we've got other financial goals that we're working on, like which of these things are a priority right now? And it's not that we can't go on a trip or a holiday. It just might not look exactly like that. So
Yes.
it's also just being really clear on what those goals are, which of those goals are a priority for you, making a
Yes.
decision based on your values. This is where that self-leadership comes through because
Yes.
really this isn't about anyone else. And
No.
so often we can make these decisions about what looks good from the outside. If I was
Yes.
like, if I think about, what I could be like, oh, I'm a business coach online, I'm building my personal brand. Maybe I will fly my family on an overseas holiday because I want people to see that I can take my family on a overseas holiday. And like, who really cares if I'm working
It's not going
from
to work.
who really cares if I'm going to work from
Yeah.
this off? Like I'm not making decisions based like that. Like that's
No.
not being self-led. That's, you know, if that's what I wanted and that was more important to me, then yes, that's what we would do. But that isn't what's more important to me. I really want, I really want that home studio office. I'm really excited about it. Like hopefully that's making sense to people.
It makes so much sense. Like when Dad and I decided to take you on a European holiday for weeks, um, at the time, it's not like we were, flash for cash, and somehow because we had that big goal together, we made it happen. And, and looking back, creating those amazing memories. Where would that money have gone? That was, my question too. Like how much money do we actually just kind of waste and,
Mm.
yeah, interesting.
It's comes back to that consciousness. Are
Yeah,
you being conscious with where you're spending your time, where you're investing your money, where you're investing
yeah,
your energy? All of these things add up. And are they adding up to the life that you want? That's what you need to ask yourself. Like if you audit your day and your week and your month,
yeah,
are you spending your time on the things that you want to be spending your time on, or are you kind of leaking a lot of time and energy away to
yeah,
crap
leaks are
that
good.
really doesn't matter?
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, interesting. So I know there's going to be a lot of women listening to the podcast that are feeling the pull to grow and evolve this year. So where do you suggest they start? What's the first step? What would be the first step in that next version of themselves? I know I've asked you that, but
In terms of actually taking an action step, I
yeah,
think it would be we've talked about getting clear on your values, getting clear on what you want, and then
yes,
actually taking the steps to make it happen. So, what is that whatever that thing is, what do you need to do? And we reverse engineer it. So when I was looking at, okay, I want to grow my business, I had to look at the business that I have right now or had then and what actual changes need to be made in order for me to actually be able to facilitate that. So I wasn't actually able to make the number of sales within my business model and the offers that I had at that point last year in order to hit the goal that I wanted. So I needed to change the way that I was doing things. And I needed to actually physically go, okay, this is the thing that needs to change and put that together and actually put it out there. So if you're wanting to start a creative project and do have more time on the weekends for that, what are you giving up? You're probably going to have to change what you spend your time doing. So is it that you need to stop doing XYZ on a Saturday and actually maybe you could do that on a Friday night and then you'll have time for your creative project on a Saturday, as an example? Or is it that you really do want to take your family on a family holiday? And in order for you to do that, you're going to need to save some money. Go and start a, savings bank account, name it family holiday, and start transferring money into that account. Like what is it that you actually need to do? What do you need to have? What are the things that need to be in place in order for you to reach that goal and to do that thing that you want to do? And start with the first thing that's going to help you get there. And it really depends on what that is, obviously.
yeah. I think it's really interesting when you set goals, big goals, and you don't necessarily reach them. But what I can tell you is you definitely reach more.
Yes. Yeah. So
You
am I going to
definitely
reach the
reach more.
exact goal that I want to reach this
Yeah,
year in terms of the amount of money that I want to make and the sales that I need to have? Maybe, and that'd be wonderful, but also maybe not. But I know that I have already grown my business more than I would have in the last 3 months than I would
exactly.
have if I hadn't have set
You were
that
just doing
goal.
it willy-nilly.
Yeah.
I think people take going with the flow. Sometimes they don't realize that the flow can be conscious flow.
Hmm.
There can be a plan.
There can be a plan. And I think if you're just going with the flow, does that mean that you're just letting life happen to you rather than you being an active participant in it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm all for going for the flow, going with the flow, you know. Now, there's the other big theme for 2026 is embodiment and personification. So let's go deeper into the identity work because this is where the real transformation happens. So, what does it really mean I know we touched on this, but I'd like to go a bit deeper. What does it really mean to step into the person you need to be? And how do you actually do that in a practical, embodied way? You know, we talk
Mm.
about it all the time. Some of these spiritual concepts are beautiful, but they just get thrown around like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, what does the embodiment mean? How do you embody that
That's
person?
right.
What does that look like? How do you walk around like them? I think, I mean, we have touched on this in terms of what that looks like. And, there's the habits and there's the um, kind of boundaries that we need to have for ourselves and thinking about where we're spending our time, all of that. I think the other thing that we can really think about when it comes to identity is our thoughts and how we're thinking and how we're speaking about what is possible for us and what
Yes.
we want to do. And we are so much more in control of that than we give ourselves credit for. And we have the ability at any time to really consciously choose what that looks like. And if we can step out of the emotion of some of that, and actually take a bit of a look at what our self talk is and our thoughts and beliefs about certain things, and we can actually look at that from that a more outsider perspective, that perspective of where we're just observing it rather than judging it. And we're not so in it, because when we're in
Yes,
it, it's really hard to see it. But when we
that's
step
right.
out of it, we can see it for what it is. And we can have love and compassion for those thoughts, And if we think about that inner critic as like one part of us who loves to come up with all of the reasons why we can't do things or why it's not possible or why we shouldn't do that. Da, 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 da. What we want to do is say, I see you. I see that fear. I see that self doubt, but you are not running the show. I guess it's that self leadership piece again around like, where are you leading from? Are you leading from a place of scarcity? Are you leading from a place of self doubt? Or are you leading from a place of, you know, I can have what I want to have and I can make that happen. I'm the person who makes that happen. And I think it's about that self responsibility. And so when we think about the identity piece, it's like, okay, well, if you've got a goal and you want to get there, how does that version of you think about herself? Because we're not miraculously, if you don't think you're creative and your goal is to paint a painting for your house or whatever it is, but you're telling yourself, I can't do that because I'm not creative, well, you're never going to reach that goal. The
Yeah,
person who thinks, who can do that, who can go and have some kind of creative pursuit, they go, I am creative and I can go and learn that thing, or I can go and practice that thing, and I can get good enough to go and create that thing,
yeah,
It's all in how we look at it. It's all in how we think about it. It's all in what we believe about
powerful,
ourselves.
really powerful. I think too, like, I'm a big believer in glamour magic, and I think sometimes too, you need to like dress like her, create a space like her, really fully own it, really fully step into it and merge with her. And it's not like becoming something you're not, it's becoming something more of who you truly are, like or who you want to be, like but there is a lot to be said for actually fully owning it and kind of merging with it. And you know, more than walking your talk, we talk about walking the talk, but it's more than that. It's actually being it,
Mm.
being it, like, yeah, super cool. And
I call this standards. So
yeah,
if in terms of the space that you're in or how you look, it's like, does that version of yourself have, a messy office? And it's okay. Like, it's not like you have to be pristine all the time, but it's
yes,
like, how is that environment impacting you? I know when I started work at the start of this year, over the summer holidays, my office was the dumping ground for a lot of stuff, for a lot of Christmas presents.
yeah,
And like it was just messy. And I left it like that for a couple of weeks. And then I just went, nah, I'm done with this. I need to have a space that feels like me. I need to have a space that feels clean, that I can come into, that can support me to do the work that I want to do. And so it's about having that standard for yourself. Like, what are those standards that you need? When you go and do those things, like, how are you dressing? What is that? What are those standards? And
Yes.
are
To
you
me, that's
actually
integrity
committed to
too.
that? Mm.
It's integrity, like, I think you have to have the substance, you have to follow through, you have to, um, yeah, exactly, Beck. Like, you need to be looking around going, oh wow, yeah, this is supporting that embodiment or is supporting that personification. Absolutely.
Another great example is I know when I started working with a naturopath, I had this story that I wasn't great at taking tablets every day. And I just had this thing like, I'm just not really good at remembering. Like,
Yeah.
what a cop out. What a freaking cop out. Like, no,
Yeah.
just be
Be
better.
conscious of the cop outs,
Just
right?
do better. And you know what? I have my bloody tablets every day now.
Yeah.
I
And
can
you
do that.
probably
I'm a
feel so
person who
much
does
better
that.
for it.
Yeah. And like, of course, there are times where like, oh, I might remember midday. I'm like, oh, randomly, I didn't have that today. But like, I go and then take them. It's just really be conscious of those things that you're telling yourself that are holding you back from being the person that you want to be. Like, do you
Yeah,
want to
get
be a person that doesn't take their tablets every day? No.
that's right. Yeah. And of course, life isn't always smooth. Motivation fades, overwhelm creeps in. How do we stay consistent on those kind of really tricky, hard days? And what does self-leadership look like when things aren't flowing? Because it doesn't mean shit's not going to happen, right? Shit happens, right?
Absolutely. I think self-leadership is more important in those moments. This is all well and fine when you've had a really good night's sleep and you're feeling really great and you've had a really beautiful amount of time in the morning to get ready and you're just feeling like you've just woken up. You're in if you've still got a cycle, maybe you're in your follicular phase, you're just like, yes, or your ovulation phase, and it's so good. I tell you, the amount of conversations I have with clients who are like, oh, I'm in my luteal phase. And I'm like, yeah, let's not make any rash decisions right now
I think
based
it's
on
that's
how you're
self-awareness,
feeling.
isn't it? I think it's important to be aware of what's going on,
Mm.
and you can adjust to the environment or to the
Yes.
situation. But when it becomes like an excuse or a cop out or I don't
Yeah.
know, I think you need to really honor your own body, especially your own cycle. It makes perfect sense. But at the same time, so does that mean for, 3 weeks of the month, there's
You just don't do anything.
to be like
Sorry.
me, like at my stage of life, in my crone stage of life, like, yeah, oh, I'm not going to be doing that today because I'm having, hot flushes or I'm I don't know. There's always something, right?
Yeah, and like there's nuance to this. Like
Yeah.
you're not going to be a great example of this is in business, you're showing up, you're creating content. That's something that people can find really challenging. And like to do that consistently and to stay motivated around it. But the fact is that you can't rely on motivation because it does wane. We're not going to be motivated all the time to do
No,
these
and
things.
it's actually not healthy.
No,
You
and
do
look,
need
I'm not motivated to
space.
take my bloody tablets every morning, but I still goddamn do it because I'm disciplined. Like
Yeah, yeah,
it's about having some discipline and following through. And it feels really good when you do it. I won't lie.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
when you've made a promise to yourself and you keep that promise, you are like, I am Wonder Woman. Like,
So
yes,
true.
go me. Like, I felt really shitty today and I didn't feel like doing it, but I showed up and I did it. Like, how many times, if you've made yourself go to the gym on a day where you didn't really feel like going to the gym, and then you finish and you're like, and not that I go to the gym anymore, but you finish and you're like, I feel so much better for that.
Yeah,
You go out, you go
exactly.
for a walk, you go out, you do something, you know
Don't
that it's
talk
good for
yourself out
you.
of the good stuff. We do it all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, yes,
exactly.
you might not have had a great sleep, but are you going to let that impact your entire day today? Are you going to impact the future you're creating for yourself? And this is where it's like, what's more important to you? Yes, there is of course nuance to this. If you've just, if you're like, I'm going to say this, but like if you're hit by a truck and you're in the hospital and you've got broken limbs, like maybe you're not doing it. But like if you are capable and it's literally just this, like, I don't really want to do it excuse, like, I don't really feel like doing that today. Like, come on. Like, you've got to have some discipline in and
Some
around it.
self-discipline, some self-motivation. I also think too, if you do have to have what I call a doona day, I think you have the doona day because you're unwell without any guilt.
Yes,
Because
like
if you
commit to
spiral
it.
into guilt and shame, you're not going to get up the following day and do what you need to do. You're going to go into some kind of slump. So I think, it's okay to have a doona day and
Mhm.
honor your own body if you're unwell or whatever it might be, or you might just be having a really shitty day and you're exhausted. But I think the important thing is to not beat yourself up, have that self-compassion, but realize tomorrow's a new day and I'm going to get up and I'm going to do it tomorrow, because,
And I think this is where self-leadership comes in and that decision making comes in. Like decide to
yeah,
have a doona day and say, I'm having a doona day and I'm
there you
not
go.
doing all of that, right? Because
Yes,
what happens, I
own
find,
it. Yeah.
yeah, is people will be like, oh, I feel really terrible and I'm just going to have a rest. And then at the end of the day, they're like, oh, I really should have done that thing. And so then they go and make themselves do that thing, or they feel really guilty about the fact that they didn't do that thing. And then the next day, they just feel a bit
Then it's
shit
like,
about the whole thing
that's right.
rather
And
than just
because you feel
deciding
shit,
it.
you don't do it the following day and you don't do it the day after that. And all of a sudden you've forgotten about it?
And I will tell you, it is way easier to maintain momentum than it is to start. So when you're stopping and starting all the time, like if you're trying to establish a new habit and you're stopping and starting all the time, it feels so much harder because you feel like you're always constantly starting from scratch. And it's like, oh, how do I do this again? Oh, I've got to like build it up. I'm back to square one. All of these stories we've got, rather than just maintaining momentum. Like start,
Yes.
be consistent. Yes, if there's a little blip, oh well, keep going. Like, and not make things out to be this really huge thing. I think this is one of the things, right? Like we get so caught up in the emotion of it and the
Exactly.
stories and
The
the guilt
story,
and the shame and
the
the
stories
like
around it.
you're okay. Pick yourself back up. We can
Yes,
do this, Like
exactly.
if you've got goals, it will get uncomfortable on the way there. And it's not always going to be like this really beautiful linear trajectory where you're going from A to B.
You'll have
You're probably,
obstacles that you need to overcome. You'll have challenges, which will actually grow you anyway.
I mean,
Um,
they say it's all about who you become on the way there, not actually what you get.
yeah,
It's true
that's
though.
right.
All of these
It's so
cliches.
true.
Yeah.
It's so true. I
Yeah.
think, and just, as you said, coming back to your why too, that's so important.
I think if that's always your North Star, then the challenges are way easier because it's like, okay, well, I'm doing this for this reason. I'm pushing myself outside of my comfort zone for this reason. And that reason is more important to me than the fear I might have. This comes up in business all the time. Business is such a good example of this because when you're in business, you've got to put yourself out there in a way that you never usually have to, right? Or perhaps it's like going for a new job or going for a promotion, like you're putting yourself in a room that feels a little bit uncomfortable, but that discomfort is worth it for the outcome. And it's
It's
like,
positive pain. It's
yeah.
positive pain. It's growing pains. It's like when you have a baby, that's slightly uncomfortable, right? But at the end of it, you have a beautiful baby.
Yeah.
So, energetically, we have growing pains as well. So, if you stretch yourself, there's always going to be a little bit of, growing pains. So, I think, yeah, I love the way you explained that. There's a difference between positive pain, where you get something fabulous at the end of it, compared to self-sabotage, sabotaging pain. There's big, big difference.
And I think so many of these things are like cliched, like personal growth, personal development things. But if you think about where you want to be in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time, at the end of this year, whenever it is, think about not being there because you made crappy unaligned decisions all year, you know? Like, would you rather stay where you are? Because staying where you are is also a choice. And I think that's the thing people forget. Like, when you don't act on the things that you want, you are actively making a choice to not do that.
It's like when people decide to retire, they've made that decision to retire, right? But up until that point, they're not retired.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's okay to retire. Um, it's so funny. I had someone ask me the other day, "Oh, okay, so do you think you're going to retire?" And I went, "Well, that's a little bit tricky because my passion's my work. So it's like saying, do you want to give up your passion?" But at some point, I'm going to have to slow down, I guess. But you know me, I'm just sort of like, it's like I'm just warming up and I've been doing this forever. So interesting, very
And
interesting.
it evolves, right? Like your work
Yeah,
will evolve. Like you
yeah,
may not be doing exactly what you're doing right now in 10 years' time, but you might be doing some of it if you want.
yeah,
I
that's
always think
right. You
it's
might,
so exciting to think about what you will be doing in 10 years' time. Like if you look back 10 years ago, the things that you were doing in your business, for example, where your business was at,
was
you know,
perfect for them.
it was perfect for then, but you almost wouldn't be able to imagine where you are now.
Do
It's
I
so
want to be doing that now?
hard.
No, I don't. I don't want the
No.
revolving door of 7 day a week readings. But at the time, it excited me, you know.
Yeah. And like
Um,
where you'll be in 10 years' time will be perfect for then. And that's
that's right.
exciting.
So good. So finally, Bec, if a woman listening today feels like she's standing on the edge of an evolution, like she can sense something big shifting inside her, what would you most want her to know?
I would most want her to know that if you want it, it is yours. Do not be afraid to claim it and do not feel like it's something that's meant for someone else. Because if you truly desire it, I think desire is an intuitive feeling. Do you feel that?
Desire is definitely raw intuition. Like if you peel back all the stories or the that's not for me, that's for someone else, or desire is a beautiful, intuitive insight, like, yeah, I think desire has been given a bad rap, actually. I think desire is very intuitive, very instinctive, very important to your happiness, actually,
Hmm. So
you
if you
know?
want something, it's yours. And I think that is what I would want someone to know.
Yes,
And therefore, let go of all of those stories that it's not for you for whatever reason and
yes,
allow yourself to want it and
yes,
then allow yourself to dream of it and be in that space of like, what if that was possible for me? And what would that look like? And what would that feel like? And get into the energy of that and then get excited for that. And then look at, okay, what do I need to do in order to get there? And what needs
yes,
to change? And
yes,
that can be very practical things. And it can be, as we've talked about, those habits, those behaviors, those mindsets, those standards, those beliefs, all of those things are going to be wrapped up in what is going to allow you to get there. But the first thing you need to do is allow yourself to want it and not be afraid to want it.
yes, yes, that's right. Negotiating fear. Gosh, how many of us do that, you
Mm.
know? Um, desire, is just amazing. And desire definitely leads to destiny, if you want to talk about that. Like, beautiful. What a beautiful way to end the podcast. So your contact details will be in the show notes. But how do our listeners find you easily, Bec?
Well, you're all listening to this wonderful podcast. I also have a wonderful podcast that Suzy Cherub has appeared on many times. You've been the most interviewed person on the podcast. Um, Feminify with Bec Cuzzillo. come and listen. It is specifically for you if you are in business. So if you are a spiritual woman in business, you want to grow your business, you want to step into that version of yourself who runs a business that feels really aligned. My kind of tagline, and something that I've been thinking about a lot because I'm 10 years in business this year, is set your soul on fire, and it always has been. And so if you want a business that really sets your soul on fire, then come and listen to Feminine Fire with Bec Cuzzillo. That's probably the easiest place to find me from exactly where you are right now. Otherwise, I'm over on Instagram at Bec_Cuzzillo. And I would love to hear from you if you have listened to this and you've enjoyed it. I'm sure you would too, Mum, but come and let us
Absolutely.
know.
Yeah.
I really love having conversations in the DMs. So if anything's kind of resonated or landed for you today, if you want to come and introduce yourself, please do. Don't be shy. I'm the person who responds to all of my DMs. It is really me. So come and say hi.
How do people work with you, my love?
So, my program is called the Spiritual Business Mistress Mind, and I did evolve the program at the end of last year, which is actually really exciting. So, as I've kind of talked about, it was one of the reasons I did that was because it really fit with the future vision for my business, but it also means that I now have a more accessible way to work with me. So, previous to that, I had the Spiritual Business Mistress Mind, which was a mastermind level for women who are in business ready to scale. And I still have that level of the program. So if you're at that point, come and chat with me. But I now have a more accessible level of the program as well, which is really for spiritual women in business who want to get to a place where they're creating consistent cash. So you've got a more sustainable business, you've got recurring revenue coming in, you're in that more stable position. That's what we do inside the program. And we do that through very practical business strategy, but we also do that through the mindset, the energetics, the identity work. All of that is wrapped up into a beautiful space. And I'm really, really loving, I mean, I've always loved that program. I've been running it for 5+ years now, but I'm really loving this latest evolution of it. So come and join me if that's you.
It's absolutely wonderful. I've been in it. It's amazing. I'd love to pull a card for you and for the collective, for our beautiful listeners, from my Star Temple Oracle deck. It was my first baby. I love this deck. It's been a huge, beautiful seller as well. It's done really, really well. And I think the card is so appropriate for you, Bec, and for our listeners and for our podcast today. It's Athusa, the sun goddess. Lift off. I open my senses to feel delicious pleasure and passion. There she is. She's
Yes.
rising with the flames and she's rising into the cosmos. And the words are really beautiful as well. We've got start, change, play. Alcyon's daughter of light, Athusa, brings tidings of a fresh start and exhilarating new beginnings. As the sun goddess, she encourages you to rise like the sun and dance with the stars. Be playful and open to change, and you will feel vibrant once again. Ventures that you begin now are blessed with abundance and success. The planning you do, personally and spiritually, will bring miraculous change to your life. Enjoy the journey and celebrate the wins along the way with gratitude. Yay!
I love
Perfect.
that. What a perfect card. You know that I love the fire element too.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Bec.
Thank you for having me.
Bec, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your fire, and your heart with us today. As your mum, watching you rise into your power has been one of the greatest joys of my life. And as a fellow woman on the path, I'm endlessly inspired by the way you lead, the way you hold space, and the way you show up with such devotion. To everyone listening, I hope today's conversation has sparked something inside of you, a remembering, a readiness, a quiet knowing that you are capable of leading yourself into the life you truly desire. If this episode supported you, share it with a woman you love. And as always, trust your inner oracle. She knows the way. Until next time, luminous ones, Keep shining. Bye for now.